Hey, welcome to our podcast for the week, episode 9 of Gametime Greatness Season 10. I'm your co-host for the week, Ethan Wright, GG5 champ.
And I am your other co-host, Noah Dunsmore, GG4 and GG7 champ.
So thanks everybody for tuning in. We're not in our normal high-quality, high-tech studio like we are every other week. We're here working remote, following social distancing guidelines and keeping everyone safe, saving the world, just like the government wants. So starting us off, we've got a couple new club members like we keep up with every week. For the 200-point club, we have no one. No one cares, but I missed it again.
I think you're right. Nobody cares.
Nobody cares, but had a chance and blew it. For Noah, you want to tell us about our other club?
Yep. So in contrast to the 200-point club, we have our famous and beloved 100-point club. And this is for those who didn't hit 100 points on the week. And that would be Holmes, who I believe hit 93 on this week. Holmes, you went from beating me by scoring 185 last week or 2 weeks ago to scoring 93 this past week. So welcome to the under 100-point club.
Pretty tragic performance. Welcome to the club. We'll take good care of you. The last club is the Goose Club. We had 3 members in that this week. Grant, who had Justin Jackson, who was injured very early. Not really Grant's fault, but Quack, welcome to the club. CC had Corey Davis, who pretty surprisingly joined the club. He's been pretty solid every week up until now, and he just randomly decided to throw in a dud in there. So, oh well, you got the dub anyways with your poor performance. We'll talk about that later. And lastly, we had Cole with the San Francisco defense. And I debated saying this because I don't really want to help you out at all, Cole, but we just need to recognize his poor management. I don't know if the rest of the league has looked at who he started on defense every week, but he drafted San Francisco defense. He has started them every week, and they've put up above 6 or 7 points maybe twice. I think he scored -2 and 0 the past 2 weeks, and they're still in his lineup. Hopefully he just keeps them there all season because it's helping everybody else out.
We do think he's checking his lineup, right?
Maybe. I don't know. He starts 3 tight ends every week. So
that's true. He forgot to move that 3rd tight end. He's probably looking for a 4th one as we speak. All right. So getting now the recap of our week 9 matchups. First, starting off with Brandon and Jake. I know Jake thought this would be competitive. The rest of us, I don't think we really thought that would be the case. And that was the case. It was not very competitive. Brandon took over Jake pretty easily in this matchup. It was close initially, but then Brandon's wide receivers turned it on, and they averaged over 20, and his 2 flex wide receivers averaged 15. So good week, Brandon. Tough loss, Jake.
Yeah, Brandon was really worried at first, and then he refreshed, and I think like every player on his team scored or had a big play, and then it was kind of over from there on.
I think Jake might have scored his 2nd highest point score of the year. I think he almost hit 150. So attaboy, Jake.
Hey, he's moving up. Our next matchup was Mike and Zach. On paper, this is, not really a matchup we're looking forward to, but it ended up being our closest matchup of the week and the most entertaining coming down to the wire. Zach pretty much just got carried by another 200-yard and 2-touchdown performance from Dalvin Cook. Not really anything else to talk about on his team other than just Dalvin Cook taking lives. Mike fought back in the end. By the end of Monday night, ended up just being a 5-point L instead of the blowout. Jacoby Myers decided that he actually did know how to play football and put up a bunch of yards and catches for the Pats.
Yeah, Cook's really been carrying Zach's team so far this year, but better hope he doesn't get hurt, Zach, because I'm not giving you Madison. So our 3rd matchup of the week was Cole Bennett and Jarvis. Jimmy Graham, somehow somebody's starting him, had a great game for Cole. Of course, Cole's with the 3 tight ends. But other than that, Mahomes and Tyreek Hill both put up huge numbers to give him the win. This was a pretty tough matchup from both sides, but not nearly as bad as this next matchup here that Ethan's going to recap again for us.
Yeah, so this next matchup is pretty much just 2 guys in wheelchairs who are elderly, just got out of the hospital and just decided to start swinging at each other and just fall out of the wheelchairs and break more bones. This is Holmes versus CC. And as we mentioned in the club members updates, Holmes failed to get 100 points in this one. That's pretty embarrassing. At the beginning of the year, he had big names like Mike Evans, OBJ, Zeke Elliott, and they kind of just all backfired on him recently. OBJ's dead. Evans has like 35 all-pro receivers on his team, and Tom Brady doesn't like him. Zeke, he probably should give the Cowboys back some money at this point. CC, congrats on your win, but you put up 116 points, so I can't really say you deserve it. But congrats. Second only to Jake last week, winning with 115. This is the second lowest winning point total of the year.
At one point when I looked at that matchup after the noon games were over, I thought maybe somebody forgot to move one of their players that was on bye out of their lineup, but nope, they just had a very poor performance.
He might as well have had players on bye. He had a goose. He had 6 players with under 5 points and then another player with under 10. So, yeah, not a good showing for either one of these guys.
That's for sure. So our next matchup was Grant versus me this past week. This was a tough matchup for Grant. He had both David Johnson and Justin Jackson go down for injury. So that kind of skewed the results here. And it's tough when Devontae Adams and Aaron Rodgers put up 70 on a Thursday night to try to plan your week ahead. So it's a tough matchup. If both Jackson and David Johnson had actually played, I think this game would have been a lot closer. So it's a tough loss, Grant, but I'm glad it went my way.
Yeah, it was pretty much over very early on. You had the Green Bay Packers SmackDown stack on Thursday night, and then right away on Sunday, both his running backs are out. So, sorry, Grant. Rough time.
Yeah.
Our last matchup of the week was me and Matt. If you looked at Matt's lineup at the beginning of the week, it was pretty brutal. He had most of his starters either injured or on bye. At the beginning of the year, he had big names like Jonathan Taylor, Mixon, Miles Sanders, 3 good running backs. They were all MIA. Woods was on bye. So honestly, just congrats to Matt because he had a really quality management job this week. He ended up putting up like 138 points. And if you looked at his roster before, you would not have expected that. And 138, that actually would have beat 7 other teams this week. So good job there, Matt. Sorry it didn't really work out for you because I scored the highest in the week. And CMC had his long-awaited return, but now he's dead again. So hopefully that's not for long. But nobody wants to hear about the guy in first. So we'll go ahead and move on to our next segment.
All right, so that wraps up our recaps of this past week. Now we're going to move on to bad calls of the week. These are people who just made poor sit decisions. So Ethan's going to start us off with that.
Yep, kind of a new segment. Just kind of roll through and see who could have done a little bit better job in their team management. So Jarvis, I have a question for you and the rest of us because who is Steven Sims Jr.? None of us have ever heard of this guy. And if he had somehow been like that guy on the 49ers and put up 3 million yards and just out of nowhere, then it would have been a good call. But he finished with 1 catch for 4 yards, and no one, this is just an irrelevant start. I don't know why you couldn't have picked up anyone else off the waiver wire and started him, but bad call there, Jarvis. Sorry, buddy.
I think that's the second receiver behind McLaurin on the Washington football team.
It's just a bad offense.
Remember correctly.
Yeah.
Now with Alex Smith, it's you want to drop him. Actually, as you've been taking a look at the waiver wire, take a better look now before you make some of these sit decisions. All right, going with Ethan. Ethan, as he said, almost hit the 200-point club, and I know we don't really want to talk about that, so we'll move forward. But his poor decision was he didn't start Baltimore's defense. So, wow, tough week, poor decisions, Ethan. Maybe if you had, you would have got closer to 200.
Yeah, if I'd rolled with him, I would have scored just over 200, like 200.3, and I would have been happy. And then I also had John Brown and Jerry Jeudy on my bench. About 11:55 a.m. right before the game started, sitting in the car after church, looking at my lineup. I said, I really want to get John Brown and Jeudy in the lineup. Their matchups are great. And I decided to go with the floor play of Cooper and David Montgomery. Should have pulled the trigger.
Jerry Jeudy went off last week. Did Brown do pretty well?
Yep. He had 99 yards. So up next we had Matt. As we said, Matt had a pretty good management week, except for this one call, who maybe wasn't really his fault, but he should have went with Jerick McKinnon over JaMychal Hasty in the 49ers game, both playing running back. Shanahan said that Hasty was going to get a lot of run in that game, but as we all know, you can't really believe anything he says about his running backs. He just kind of does random things with random guys off the street. So probably should have went with McKinnon, ended up putting up a lot better points than Hasty, but wouldn't have done anything for you, so that's all right.
Yeah, Shanahan's tough. He refuses to commit to a workhorse back. Going now to Mike, our struggling league member. He barely lost to Zach this week after the 40-point show out by Cook. And if he had started any other active receiver on his bench over Keelan Cole, he would have triumphed over Zach. So tough loss, Mike. Better luck next time.
Yeah, so a lot of these starts didn't really have anything to do with the win, but Mike's, yeah, his did, and it cost him big because he started a guy who's not any good. So
yeah, that puts him in the consolation bracket for sure.
So up next is Holmes. Again, this wouldn't have changed the result, but it wouldn't even have got him to 100 points, so that's also embarrassing. But he started J.K. Dobbins and Devin Singletary over Zeke. And yeah, Zeke had a bum hamstring, and there's game flow concerns. He's been pretty bad the past couple weeks. But still, like Dobbins and Singletary aren't any good. You just kind of got to go with the stud if he's active. So that's all we got there.
For Cole, not really a big thing. Just pick a tight end. We know you've got 3 or 4. I hear Austin Hooper is now about to play again, so if you need to pick up a 5th one, Wiley Cox might be available. I mean, you can pick up as many as you can. I don't think we capped the number of tight ends, but just if you wouldn't mind, just narrow it down to maybe 2 max, 3.
We capped the number at like 8 because then he wouldn't have enough players to start in running back and wide receiver. His whole bench, yeah, he would love that to be tight end. Our last bad call for the week is Noah. Started some guy named Trent Taylor from San Fran. Picked the wrong San Fran receiver. Should have picked that guy, put up like 300 yards.
Yeah, Richie James went off, not Trent Taylor.
Yeah. Wrong guy. Hey, rolled the dice. Didn't work out. So our next segment is a little bit of exciting little game we're playing. Before we did candies, which candy was each league member for Halloween. We're right in the middle of all the holidays, Halloween, Thanksgiving, Christmas. So we're going to decide which holiday is each league member. So Noah will go ahead and get us started with that.
All right. So we'll start off with Jarvis. Me and Ethan were thinking about it, and we think Jarvis is kind of like New Year's, because he's only relevant at the beginning of the year. He's kind of like a New Year's resolution as well. You get all excited. You plan him, going to drop 15, 20 pounds, going to exercise, going to save money. At the end of the year, you put on the COVID-20. You don't have any money. It's just tough. So Jarvis is New Year's. Get excited at the beginning of the year, but come Christmas, none of your goals have been met, and it's just kind of depressing.
Starts out with a big bang, gets hot early, and then you just kind of forget to put in the work, and you end up at the bottom. Exactly. So next, we've got Zach with Flag Day. Because really, who even remember that Flag Day was a holiday? Nobody's worried about celebrating Flag Day. Nobody's, the flag is important, just like Zach's important to our league. But we're not worried about celebrating it, just like we're not worried about playing against Zach's team.
Moving forward now to Ethan. We said Ethan's kind of like Christmas and Christmas Day, not because he's the best holiday of the year, which we know Christmas is, but because, you have super high expectations for Christmas. Everybody loves Christmas. But then you go and you open your gifts under the tree on Christmas Day. And sometimes you get an elite gift. You get a great gift that you love. And other years you just get a new pack of underwear. That's kind of like Ethan's team. Come Christmas, come playoffs, he either explodes and destroys us all, or he's just there and he finishes around 6th with Zach every year.
I'm really hoping this year is the year I wake up to a brand new bike, something exciting. I got enough underwear the past couple of years. So up next, we got Noah. Noah is July 4th. He's always there. You're always kind of waiting for something to go boom. It's really flashy. It's a fun holiday. But, over in the UK, over in Britain, July 4th probably gets a lot of hate. Just like the entire league hates on Noah. Big holiday, flashy, a lot of explosions and celebration, but also a lot of hate from the rest of the world.
Moving on to Brandon. We said Brandon's kind of like Veterans Day. which just passed this past Wednesday. Because he's our fearless leader. He started the league. He's been around forever. You're not allowed to disrespect veterans. Neither should you. And so we all respect Brandon. And where would we be if he hadn't started this league? So Brandon, Veterans Day. Salute to you.
You're welcome. Moment of respect. Up next is CC. Just like Brandon, he's also been there since the beginning, but he kind of always gets forgotten about. Everybody remembers Brandon because he has the victories. But CC, he's always coming in second place. Kind of like Thanksgiving. Thanksgiving's a great holiday. Actually, my favorite holiday. But if you look around right now, nobody's putting up their Thanksgiving tree and decorating for Thanksgiving. They just go straight to Christmas and forget all about Thanksgiving. So sorry, CC, you came in second place one too many times.
Moving on to Holmes, our newly 100-point club member. For Holmes, we said your holiday is kind of like the Pledge of Allegiance Day, which that is a holiday. You're always so loyal to the commissioner. You're always just praising Brandon. You never question his authority or instructions. You just do what he says without question. Kind of like a suck up. So that's why we attributed this holiday today to you, Holmes. So congratulations.
Up next is Mike. Mike, your Memorial Day. And this is very simple. Memorial Day is to honor those who have died in battle. And your team is dead. That's all. Moving on.
All right, moving on to Matt. We said, Matt, your holiday is Father's Day. You're kind of fatherly in this league. You always try to keep the peace, keep everyone a level head. Don't have anybody going back and forth, regardless of what trade Ethan sends them. Don't want them to get too mad. You're a good figure to go to for fantasy advice if anybody needs anything or they just want to talk to.
Up next is Grant. Grant, we decided that you're Labor Day. A little pay and our respects there to you. Grant's always putting in tons of work in the podcast, making them look great. He's actually on PTO this week from, league AV guy. So if this podcast looks a little rough, it's not Grant's fault. He's also always having to put in a ton of work on the waiver wire because his team's just been kind of tragic lately. So Grant, happy Labor Day.
Moving on to Cole. We said Cole is kind of like Ash Wednesday. You might think this is confusing at first, but this is the first day of Lent, And so for Cole, this year for Lent, the item that we decided he was going to give up was his second roster. And that was the roster he was using from his former league member, Jack. So happy Lenten season, Cole. You have given up your brother, Jack.
Our last league member, saving the best for last, is Jake. Jake, you might get excited when you hear this at first, but be patient. We decided that you're Cinco de Mayo. Before you celebrate and party, like we always do on Cinco de Mayo, keep in mind that Cinco de Mayo should have no utter relevance in our culture at all. Just like Jake's insistent pursuit of a nickname for no reason. Rex, as he likes to be called, is literally a random name he picked while sitting on a bench in the street in Colorado. It has no relevance and is completely forced, just like us celebrating Cinco de Mayo. All right, so that's wraps up our holiday segment. Next, we're going to move on to our matchups for Week 10.
And starting us off, let's start with Brandon and Cole. Just taking a look at them right now. We're actually in the middle of the Thursday night game as we are looking at this. We got Brandon projected about 160 and Cole at about 145. A.J. Brown's already started off the game pretty well with a long reception. And just looking at Brandon's roster, he's got Aaron Jones hopefully back, more healthy. Diggs is going to be here as well. I'm going to pick Brandon in this matchup just because I think his roster is getting healthy. Will Fuller had a crazy week last week. The Texans offense, I think, is finally clicking to get that mid-level pick that never comes with a good player, but they're starting to pop off. So I'm going to go with Brandon over Cole this week.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Brandon too. Really, the biggest factor is Aaron Jones is coming back, and then Josh Allen's been really hot recently, and I think he's going to stay that way. He came back to life last week, so see if he rolls with it. I'm going to take Brandon there. Up next, we'll go with Matt and Noah. So Matt and Noah's matchup this week has the potential to be close. Matt's got should have all of his starters coming back this week. Mixon, Sanders, Woods, and Jonathan Taylor. Jonathan Taylor's already got almost 3 points, and that's, putting his projections a little high than the last couple weeks. So Noah's going to be getting Mike Davis back with the CMC injury. I'm going to go with Noah here. He just got a lot of weapons. So
yeah, as we speak, Jonathan Taylor is now losing the ball and fumbling and going to get pulled for Jordan Wilkins and Naeem Himes. So no, Matt has a more healthy roster coming back this week with Preston Williams going to IR. Now Devontae Parker is for sure the number one and hopefully can build a little bit of rapport with Tua. I see Matt took Tua out of his starting lineup for Derek Carr. Interesting pick there. Looks like Mixon didn't practice today, so that's something to keep watch for because Mixon doesn't practice. Doesn't play. I have Bernard, so that would be a tough matchup. And as Ethan said, I have Mike Davis, so I'm going to go with myself here as well. But I think it's going to be closer than some people might think. All right, so let's move on. We'll do Ethan versus Memorial Day, aka Mike. Just taking a look at the matchup right here. At Ethan's team earlier in the week, he was projected about 170, but let's see, that's dropped down now. So we got Kyler Murray, who had a crazy week last week. I forget who they played last week, but he had 40? Tyler Lockett's been going well. Robbie Anderson has been taking targets from DJ Moore. Ethan's team is tough to bet against this year, and Mike, even though you're starting Wayne Gallman, even though Devontae Freeman might be out, I don't think that's gonna bring you to victory this week. So I'm gonna have to go with Ethan on this matchup.
Yeah, I'm gonna pick myself just like I always do every week. Projections were really high, but then McCaffrey, is hurt. So
that's true.
If David Montgomery, he has a concussion, if he doesn't clear protocol by Monday night, then that's going to be a rough hit for me. I'm going to have to start somebody random, but I think I'll pull it out. So I'm going to pick myself in this one. So we'll see how that goes. Up next, we'll go with Jake and Grant. So here Jake currently has a blank spot in his running back, so that's not good. We're going to go with Grant here. Grant's receivers have been pretty hot recently. He's got Justin Herbert in the lineup. He's, early Rookie of the Year candidate. Looking good. I'm going to go with Grant here over Jake.
Yeah, so I'm gonna go, or just looking at this roster right now, I think Jake's has that RB spot open because he has Chubb on his IR right now, who is potentially supposed to come back this week. So hopefully that will help him out.
If he comes back, that could be a game changer.
Yeah, that's for sure. As the game's going right now, Tannehill already has a touchdown and is looking pretty good, but it's on Jake's bench, so that doesn't affect the game. Injury bug has really bitten Grant so far this year. David Johnson's most likely not to play. He's got Jackson and Harris got nicked up in that Monday night game as well. So I'm actually going to go with Jake this game just pretty much for health alone. All right. Now let's go to Zach and Colin. Flag Day versus Thanksgiving Day. Just taking a look at it right now, looks like Zach's projected a little bit under 150, and Colin or CC is projected about 140. Looking at Zach's lineup right now, Lamar Jackson's been struggling the past couple of weeks for where he drafted him, late first, early second. But Zach's team, is carried really by Dalvin Cook, and he's just been going off this year as the RB1, even with missing a game. But Colin's team has Fulgham, who's been playing well. James Conner has been iffy. And his flex and his RBs here, I feel like, are pretty weak. So I'm going to go with Zach in this matchup with a strong Dalvin Cook and hopefully a bounce back game from Lamar Jackson that Sunday night versus New England.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Zach here. Lamar Jackson hasn't been that great, but, he could have a good matchup here against New England. Hawkinson has been good. He's one of the highest tight ends this week, but I saw he missed practice today. If he doesn't play, then I might switch this to CC. But as of right now, I'm going to roll with Zach. CC's got Travis Kelce on bye, and that's been one of his studs all year long. But right now, hey, Corey Davis already has a catch, so better than the goose he put up last week. But, yep, going to go with Zach. So our last matchup of the week is Holmes and Jarvis. These were two guys who kind of underperformed last week. We'll see how they roll out this week. Holmes has Zeke on bye, so doesn't have to worry about that headache again this week. I'm going to go with Jarvis here. He's got Noah Fant with a good matchup. Cooper Kupp with a great matchup. I know he's kind of injured right now, but I think he's supposed to play. Carson potentially coming back. If he doesn't come back, then that might be a little bit of a hiccup for him. He'll have to maybe roll up Darrell Henderson or Darnell, whatever his name is, Henderson on the Rams. I'm going to go with with Jarvis here.
Yeah, just taking a look at this matchup. Jarvis has Mahomes and he has Carson, who's, like you said, may or may not play. So that's tough for him. Looking at Holmes, he's got Mooney, who's played really well, as I know, who smacked me around a couple weeks ago. He had 11 targets last week, so I think that was a pretty solid pickup from Holmes here. Evans hasn't performed. We all saw that horrendous game last Sunday night with the Bucs, but he's got Austin Cooper coming back. I think I'm going to go with Holmes here. Just looking on matchup alone. I have no clue who that Buffalo kicker is, though. I will point out.
The Bass Master. All right, so that wraps up our matchups for the week, and with that wraps up this week's podcast. So thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next week. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe down below.
Thanks.